The phone kept ringing. My hand trembled as I reached for it, the bruise around my wrist still purple and tender. Each vibration buzzed through my bones. I let it ring twice more before pressing accept. Double quotes, Ma. Please don't hang up. Zion's voice was low and panicked, and I could hear Naomi in the background whispering sharp words that cut through the line. Zion, I said quietly, steady as I could. I'm fine. The doctor said it's just bruising, deep tissue damage, the kind that takes a while to fade. I'm confused. Ma. I looked out the window at the frozen yard where a lone crow pecked at the ice-stiff grass before flying away. 2 nights ago, you told me I had more money than I needed, that I was going to die alone in this house anyway, and that what I did with my money wasn't your concern. The silence stretched. I could almost see him standing in that sleek suburban kitchen with the granite counters I helped pick and the backsplash I paid for when they ran over budget. I imagined his face running through the same colors it always did when he got caught. Denial, guilt, panic. The same look he had when he was 12 and got busted stealing baseball cards from the corner store. Ma, listen. No, you listen. My voice stayed soft, but there was steel underneath it now. Steel that hadn't been there before. Your wife stole $30,000 from me. You knew about it. You helped her. And when I confronted y'all, you shoved me to the ground and left me bleeding on my own kitchen floor. I didn't mean to. It was an accident. The police have pictures, Zion. The hospital has records. My lawyer has every withdrawal Naomi made. I let those words settle heavy between us. So no, I said finally, I didn't pay your mortgage. Ma, please. His voice cracked, desperate in that way that used to pull at me. That used to make me reach for my checkbook, my credit card, anything that would fix things. They're gonna foreclose. We'll lose everything. Just this once. I laughed, a sound sharper than I expected, foreign even to my own ears. Just this once? I gave you $20,000 for your down payment 7 years ago. I covered your car notes, your credit cards, your emergencies. And you repaid me by stealing from me and by putting your hands on me. I'm sorry. God, Ma, I'm so sorry. Are you sorry you did it or sorry you got caught? I asked. No answer. The crow that had flown off returned with another. They circled above the frozen ground, searching for something to eat, finding nothing. Let me tell you what happened 2 nights ago, I said, my voice calm and cold. Let me tell you how I got these bruises, this concussion, this clarity about who my son really is. Then you'll understand why I won't help you, why I can't. 3 months before Christmas, I was still the woman I had been for 72 years, Evelyn Holt. Retired elementary school teacher, widow for 5. Mother to an only son who called every Sunday and visited every month. My world was small but full. Fridays were for book club at Denise Carter's place on Maple Street. We gathered at 2 to discuss whatever novel someone picked that week, mostly historical fiction. Sometimes mysteries, never romance. We were past needing fairy tale endings spelled out for us. Saturdays belonged to Zion and Naomi. I drive out to their new build in the suburbs. The house I helped them buy and cook full dinners like it was Thanksgiving every weekend. Pot roast with all the fixings. Lasagna that took 6 hours. Desserts from scratch because Naomi swore store-bought tasted like chemicals. I'd get there around 4 and leave by 9. 5 hours of watching them eat while they scrolled through their phones. Barely looking up, I told myself it was fine. Family was family. That's what we do, show up, even when it hurts a little. I didn't know then how much hurt was waiting just around the corner. 3 months before Christmas, I was still the woman I'd been for 72 years. Evelyn Holt, retired elementary school teacher, widow for 5, mother to an only son who made me feel less alone in this quiet Atlanta house. Every Sunday Zion called, his voice warm, dutiful, practiced. Every month he and Naomi came by, bringing grocery bags or half-hearted smiles depending on how tight money was. I told myself those visits were love. I wanted to believe they were. Fridays were my escape. Denise Carter hosted book club at her townhouse on Maple Street. I'd bake lemon bars, put on my best cardigan, and drive across town to sit with women who had known me for decades. We'd drink coffee, argue about plot twists, and laugh about our aging knees and grown children who never called enough. We read mostly historical fiction, sometimes a mystery, never romance. We didn't need stories to tell us what happy endings. Looked like we'd lived long enough to know they rarely came. Easy. Saturdays belonged to Zion and Naomi. I drive 40 minutes to their suburban home, the one I helped them buy with $20,000 from Bernard's life insurance, and cook. Like it was a holiday every week. Pot roast with all the sides, lasagna that simmered half a day, cornbread from scratch because Naomi claimed store-bought tasted like chemicals. I'd get there at 4, leave by 9, 5 long hours of them eating while their eyes stayed glued to their phones. I used to look at their faces, waiting for conversation that never came, and tell myself it was fine. Family didn't need to talk all the time. Love was in the showing up. Their kitchen always smelled like money. Granite counters, new appliances, shiny faucets that looked untouched. Naomi decorated with beige and gold, like she was living in a magazine. Every visit, she found a way to remind me what they had. "We're saving for new floors next," she'd say, pouring wine into glasses I'd given her. Zion would nod, distracted, scrolling through something on his phone. "You should really get out more, Ma," he'd add without looking up. "You're always home alone." I'd smile and agree because what else was there to do? I had built my life around them the way I once built it around Bernard, quietly, completely, expecting nothing but gratitude that never really came. My week revolved around their schedules. I cooked, cleaned, kept myself busy so I wouldn't notice how empty the house had become since Bernard died. Sometimes I caught myself talking to his chair like he was still sitting there, humming to whatever jazz station played softly in the background. That September day, the one that changed everything, had started like any other. I'd gone to the farmer's market, bought apples and cinnamon for pie, and thought about how proud Bernard would have been seeing Zion's home. He's doing well, I used to tell myself. He's responsible. He's made it. I never let myself think about how much of that making it had come from my checks. I remember that day vividly. The sun sharp and bright, the air cool, the kind of fall day Bernard loved. We'd have taken a drive if he were alive, windows down, music on, stopping for coffee and small talk that lasted hours. Instead, I came home to silence and the hum of the refrigerator. Nothing seemed wrong yet. Not until that night when an email from the bank blinked onto my screen, a message that made my heart drop. I clicked it, frowning, not knowing that what waited on the other side would unravel everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and love. I drove home in a daze and sat in the driveway for almost an hour before I could make myself go inside. When I finally did, everything looked the same but felt completely different, like I was walking through someone else's life. I set my purse down on the counter, opened my laptop with shaking hands, and clicked on the email from the bank. The subject line said, "Unusual account activity." I opened the attached file, and my stomach turned cold. The link led to security footage from the ATM, outside the branch Bernard and I had used for 30 years. The first clip showed a woman in a red coat, Naomi, sliding a card into the machine, punching in numbers and pulling out cash. The timestamp read Friday, September 13th, 9:17 p.m., Then there was another video, September 6th, same coat, same card, then August 30th, August 23rd, 8 months of Fridays. I sat there watching her take from me again and again. My daughter-in-law stealing from me in high definition. Her face was clear in every frame. Sometimes she looked nervous, glancing around like a teenager sneaking out. Other times she was calm, bored, even smiling. Once, she was laughing at something on her phone while my money came spitting out of the machine. Every clip showed the same silver Mercedes parked in the background. Zion's car, which meant either he was with her or she had his keys. I grabbed my phone and called him. It rang 4 times before he answered. "Hey, Ma, kind of busy right now." "The debit card I gave you for emergencies?" I said, my voice steady in a way that scared even me. "The one linked to my checking account." "Where is it?" He hesitated. In my wallet. Why?" "Are you sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." "What's this about?" "Check right now," I said. I heard drawers sliding open, paper rustling, then silence. "It's here," he said. "Right where it always is. Read me the number, Zion." "Ma, seriously, what? Read it." He sighed. "Fine." He read it. I compared it to the number on my statement. My throat tightened. "Same card," I said. "Same number." He tried to sound casual. "Okay, so what?" "When's the last time you used it?" "I don't know. 2 years ago, maybe, when my transmission died." "You said it was for emergencies only. Have you ever given it to Naomi?" The silence that followed stretched too long. When he finally spoke, his voice had dropped an octave. "She needed it once," he said. "Last December. For Christmas shopping. Our cards were maxed, so I told her to take out a little." "How much is a little?" "I don't know. 3,000. She said she'd pay it back right away." My living room tilted. I grabbed the arm of Bernard's old recliner to steady myself. "Did she?" "I don't know," he muttered. "I assumed." His tone changed, sharp now. "Why are you asking about this?" "I'll call you back." I ended the call before he could. For the next 3 days, I became a woman on a mission. I pulled every bank statement from the past 8 months, made a spreadsheet with dates, times, amounts, and notes. I requested additional footage from the bank, double-checked transaction IDs, and highlighted every withdrawal. I built a case like I was preparing for trial because maybe I was. Friday night, I lay awake staring at the water stain on the ceiling Bernard never got around to fixing, running numbers in my head. 24,000 in withdrawals, plus another 6,000 in the last 2 months. $30,000 total gone. That was my emergency fund. My hip replacement money. The pain had been getting worse, making it hard to sleep or walk more than a block. Insurance would cover most of it, but not all. That money was supposed to fill the gap, supposed to give me some security, some peace. I had lived carefully clipping coupons, buying generic, skipping the little luxuries so I'd always have enough for what really mattered. Naomi had taken it while I was at book club talking about fictional people's problems, taken it while I was making lemon bars for women who still believed in decency, taken it while I was living my quiet, careful life. The anger didn't hit all at once. It came slow, like a pot coming to boil, until I was burning. Then I made my decision Christmas Eve. I'd invite them over, like always. I'd cook, like always. Then I'd confront them both face to face. I wanted to see their expressions when I told them what I knew. I needed to understand how they justified this theft, how they looked me in the eye and smiled while they stole from me. Maybe some part of me still hoped there was an explanation, something that could make this make sense. Some misunderstanding. I was wrong. Christmas Eve came cold and clear, the kind of winter day that made the air sting your cheeks. I woke up at 6, showered, and put on the red sweater Zion had given me 3 birthdays ago. I started cooking before sunrise, turkey breasts for 3, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, rolls from scratch, and sugar cookies shaped like stars and trees. The kitchen smelled like butter and cinnamon and hope, the kind that sits heavy because it doesn't know yet it's misplaced. The bank statement was folded in my apron pocket. I had touched it so many times the paper had gone soft like fabric. I wasn't nervous, which surprised me. I'd spent months being the woman who explained things away, who accepted small hurts as love, who convinced herself that family was supposed to feel like this, slightly painful, mostly disappointing, but unbreakable. That woman was gone. The one rolling out cookie dough this morning was someone harder, quieter. A woman who had been kind for 72 years and had the bruises to prove it. By the time the oven timer buzzed, sunlight had filled the kitchen. I hummed one of Bernard's old gospel tunes while I wiped down the counters. I wanted everything clean, everything right. The clock said 4:47 when the doorbell rang early. I dried my hands and glanced at the clock again. They were never early. My stomach turned over once, slow. I walked to the front door, wiped my palms on my apron, and opened it. Naomi stood there in a tight black coat and heeled boots, smiling like she hadn't stolen $30,000 from me. Her hair was sleek, her perfume sharp and expensive. Zion stood behind her holding a bottle of wine he hadn't paid for. "Merry Christmas." "Ma," he said, voice a little too cheerful. "Merry Christmas," I said. I stepped aside and let them in. They moved through my house like guests who'd forgotten they used to live in my heart. Naomi set the wine on the counter and started talking about how hard traffic was, how crowded the stores had been. I watched her move around my kitchen like she owned it, touching things she hadn't earned, my plates, my oven mitts. The salt shaker Bernard carved 40 years ago. Zion sat at the table scrolling his phone while I basted the turkey. He didn't notice how quiet I'd gone. My pulse thudded in my ears. Dinner started polite. I asked about work. Zion mumbled something about a project running behind. Naomi talked about her new coworker who didn't know how to dress for her size. I nodded and smiled at all the right times. It was almost normal. But every time Naomi laughed, I saw that red coat. Every time Zion lifted his glass, I heard his voice saying, she needed it once. After dessert, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood, took off my apron, and unfolded the paper in my pocket. It shook slightly in my hands. "Naomi," I said, "I want to ask you something." She looked up from her phone, one brow raised. "Sure. Do you remember this?" I placed the bank statement on the table between the sugar cookies and the candles. Her eyes flicked down, then up, then she laughed. "What is this supposed to be?" "You tell me," I said. "You've been using my debit card for 8 months. Zion's head snapped up. "Ma, I cut him off." "Don't. I have the footage. I've got you on video, Naomi. Every Friday night, withdrawing money you had no right to." Her laugh came again, this time sharper. "That's ridiculous. You're misunderstanding." $30,000, I said. "You can check the math yourself." Zion rubbed his temples. "Ma, can we not do this right now?" "It's Christmas Eve." "Exactly. And I'd like to know why you both thought stealing from me was a gift worth giving." Naomi leaned back, crossing her arms. "You had the money just sitting there," she said. "You don't even spend it. We needed help. You could have asked." "We did," she said, her voice rising. "And you said no. So what were we supposed to do? Watch our lives fall apart while you hoarded cash for hip surgery and pie ingredients?" The words hit like blows. I gripped the counter to stay upright. "Get out of my house." Naomi smirked. "Gladly." Zion stood too, eyes darting between us. "Ma, you're overreacting," I said. "Get out." "You had no right to spy on me," Naomi snapped. "You had no right to steal from me," I shot back. "Steal?" She laughed again, colder this time. "You owe us that money, Evelyn. After everything we've done for you, visiting every month, pretending to care about your boring stories. That's worth something. For a moment, the world went silent except for the ticking clock and the hum of the refrigerator. My hands tightened around the edge of the counter. That's when I knew something in me had finally broken. The words hit harder than any slap could. For a second, I thought I might actually fall, but I caught myself on the counter and stared at the two people I'd loved most in this world. "Get out of my house," I said again, my voice shaking but clear. Naomi gave a bitter laugh. "Gladly." She reached for her purse, slow and dramatic, like this was just another argument she was winning. Zion moved toward me, his face twisted between anger and guilt. "Ma, please, don't do this." "You're making a huge mistake," I said. "Get out." He hesitated, and I saw that same look I'd seen in him as a boy when he got caught lying, his eyes darting, his jaw working like he could chew his guilt into silence. I stood my ground. Naomi stepped closer, her perfume thick and suffocating. "You really think you're some kind of victim here? That money was just sitting there. You don't need it. You hoard everything, your money, your pity, your sad little life." Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "That money was for my medical bills, for the surgery I need next year." "For what?" She shot back. "To sit around this dusty house until you die? You're pathetic, Evelyn. Always playing the martyr. Always acting like people owe you something." "Get out," I said, my voice cracking. "Both of you now." Zion's eyes flashed. "We're your family. You can't talk to us like that." "Then act like it," I said. He took a step toward me. I backed up instinctively, my shoulder brushing the counter. Naomi stood smirking behind him, arms folded, feeding his anger with her silence. "You're making this worse than it has to be," he said, his tone sharp now. "We just needed a little help. That's all." "You stole from me," I said, each word slow and deliberate. "You broke into my account, and when I asked for the truth, you lied to my face. There's no help left to give you." He clenched his jaw. "You always think you're better than everyone. Always talking about right and wrong like you're some saint. Maybe you should have thought about how we're drowning while you sit on a pile of money you'll never spend." "Out," I said again, louder this time. Naomi rolled her eyes. "You're insane, you know that." Something snapped in me. I grabbed the wine glass Naomi had poured earlier, my Chardonnay, the one she helped herself to without asking, and hurled it at the cabinet beside Zion's head. It shattered, wine splattering across the counter, the floor, the cookies I'd spent hours baking. The sound was sharp, final. Everything after that happened too fast. Zion lunged forward. For a split second, I thought he was leaving, maybe storming out. But his hands hit my shoulders instead, rough and sudden. The shove came out of nowhere. My hip slammed into the counter edge, pain exploding through my side like fire. I gasped, reaching out, trying to grab something, anything, but my heel caught on the rug Bernard and I had bought on our honeymoon in Savannah. The floor came rushing up, and before I could brace myself, my head hit the hardwood with a sickening crack. The sound and pain merged into one terrible thing. The ringing in my ears drowned out Naomi's voice. My vision blurred, colors bleeding into each other. "Jesus, Zion, what did you do?" Naomi's voice sounded distant, tinny, like it was coming from the end of a tunnel. I lay there staring at the ceiling, the same water stain Bernard promised to fix before he died. Blood was warm on my temple, spreading into my hair. My hips screamed every time I tried to move. Zion's face hovered above me, distorted and trembling. "This is your fault," he hissed. "You pushed us to this." Naomi's face appeared beside his, pale and angry. "You're insane, Evelyn. Accusing us like this? You stay away from us. We're done with you." Their footsteps thundered down the hall, then the door slammed. The Mercedes roared to life outside, its engine fading into the winter silence. I lay there for what felt like hours. The house was still except for soft music from the radio. Silent night, holy night, all is calm. All is bright. The smell of burning sugar reached me before I realized the cookies were still in the oven. I tried to sit up, but the room tilted and spun. My muscles screamed in protest. When I touched my head, my hand came away red bright, Christmas red. A bruise bloomed across my hip, swelling by the minute. I crawled toward the phone on the wall, dragging myself inch by inch, gripping the counter to pull upright. My fingers shook as I dialed. 911, what's your emergency? I need help, I managed. My voice cracked, then broke. I've been assaulted. Are you in immediate danger? No, I whispered. They left. But I'm hurt. I'm bleeding. Help is on the way. Stay on the line with me. The dispatcher's voice was calm, professional, grounding me as my body trembled from shock. The kitchen smelled like smoke and blood and fear. All I could think was that this was my home, the place where I'd cooked, loved, prayed, and raised my son. And now it was stained with what he'd done after the paramedics and police left. I sat in Bernard's old recliner with an ice pack pressed to my skull. The house felt different now, hollow, violated. Like Zion and Naomi had dragged something rotten in with them, and it had settled into the walls. My hip throbbed every time I breathed. The bruises on my arm were already turning dark. The smell of burnt cookies still hung in the air, sweet and acrid. A reminder that even something made with love could end up ruined. I looked around at everything Bernard and I had built. The family photos on the mantel, the quilt on the back of the couch, the lamp with the crooked shade that never quite stood straight. I'd built my entire life around being a good wife, a good mother, a good woman, always the giver, never the one who needed. I'd sacrificed and compromised until I'd almost disappeared. And what had it gotten me? My own child standing over me, blaming me for his choices. My blood on my kitchen floor dot, the ice melted in my hands. I tossed it in the sink and reached for my phone. My fingers still shook as I scrolled through my contacts. I called my lawyer, Alicia Grant, the same woman who'd handled Bernard's estate after he passed. The voicemail picked up, and I left a message that was short but clear. Then I called my financial advisor and left another one, explaining what had happened. By the time I set the phone down, my voice had steadied and the tears had dried. Christmas Day came and went in silence. The only sounds were the ticking clock and the hum of the heater. I didn't turn on music, didn't answer the phone. I sat in that chair and let the truth wash over me again and again until it stopped burning and started to harden into something else, resolve. The next morning, the phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Mrs. Holt. A woman's voice asked. This is Tanya from your mortgage lender. We've been trying to reach your son, but he isn't responding. I blinked, confused. My son? Yes, ma'am. He's listed as a co-borrower on the property in Brookhaven. His mortgage is 3 months behind. We've sent multiple notices. Are you able to reach him? I let out a slow breath. No, I said, and I won't be covering for him anymore. There was a pause on the other end, the kind of silence people make when they're not sure how to respond. Understood, she said finally. We'll proceed accordingly. Do that, I said and hung up. When the call ended, I sat there for a long while, staring out the window at the gray winter sky. My body still ached, but beneath the pain was something new and awakening I hadn't felt in years. For so long, I'd been living my life for other people. I'd given until there was almost nothing left of me. But sitting there in that chair, surrounded by the ghosts of what used to be love, I realized something important. I had survived. That night, I called Alicia again. This time she answered. I told her everything, the theft, the confrontation, the assault. Her voice was calm but firm. "We'll file charges," she said. "We'll move forward with restraining orders. You don't owe them a single thing, even if it means losing my son." I asked. She didn't hesitate. "You already lost him, Evelyn. Now you need to protect yourself." After that call, I poured myself a glass of water, sat back down, and opened my journal, the same one I'd kept since Bernard died. The pages were filled with grocery lists, prayer notes, and reminders to call Zion. I turned to a blank page and wrote 4 words in neat, deliberate script. "I choose myself now." I stared at them for a long time. They didn't look like much on paper, but they felt like a revolution. The next morning, Alicia called again. "We're moving forward," she said. "Police reports are filed. We'll subpoena the ATM footage and bank records. You'll get your money back, or they'll answer for it in court." I thanked her, hung up, and looked around my quiet house. The air felt cleaner somehow, lighter. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for someone else to fix things. I was done being the woman who held her tongue, who smoothed things over, who prayed problems away while people took from her. That version of me was gone, and in her place was someone new, someone my son wouldn't recognize. I pressed my hand against the bruise on my hip. It still hurt, but the pain reminded me I was still here, still standing. And this time, I was standing for me. 6 weeks passed. January bled into February, and the bruises faded from purple to yellow to nothing. The swelling in my hip went down, the cut on my forehead healed into a thin pink line. The wound inside me, though, that took longer. Every morning, I woke to silence, to the weight of everything that had broken. And then to the strange, freeing realization that I didn't owe anyone anymore. Alicia called often. "The DA's office has your file," she said one afternoon. "They're pursuing assault and theft charges against both of them. It'll take time, but it's moving forward." "Let it," I told her. They made their choices. Meanwhile, bills came and went, mail stacked neatly on the counter, and I got used to my own company again. I started walking around the neighborhood when the weather allowed, slow at first, then longer each time. People waved, asked how I was doing. "Better," I'd say, and most days I meant it. I learned that Zion and Naomi's house was in foreclosure. The bank had finally taken action. Their fancy neighborhood had started to whisper. Word travels fast when money runs out. A part of me ached for him, the little boy version. Not the man he became, but I didn't let that ache grow into guilt. He'd done this to himself. One morning in February, I was watering the plants by the window when my phone buzzed. The caller ID said Naomi Pierce. For a moment, I thought about ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered, my tone cool. "Hello?" There was a pause, then a shaky breath. "Evelyn, it's me. I know who it is." "They took the house," she said, voice breaking. "Everything's gone. I don't know where to go." I closed my eyes. I could almost see her standing somewhere with her perfect nails chipped, her confidence stripped down to fear. "I hope you figure it out," I said quietly. "You don't mean that." She snapped, her tone suddenly sharper, defensive. "You ruined us." "No," I said. "You ruined yourself." I hung up before she could say more. After that, she never called again. Time started moving differently. The days no longer blurred. I planted seeds in small pots, tomatoes, basil, and collards, and set them near the window. Watching something grow again felt like medicine. My neighbor, Patricia, a retired nurse who'd lived 2 streets over for 20 years, started stopping by on weekends. She'd bring tea, sit in Bernard's old chair, and ask gentle questions about the case. Sometimes we'd just talk about ordinary things, recipes, the weather, our church choir's new director. One afternoon, she looked at me for a long time before speaking. "You seem lighter," she said. "I am," I told her. "For the first time in years." She smiled, then hesitated. I heard about Zion. I nodded, bracing myself. What about him? He's been staying with his cousin up in Decatur. Word is he's drinking too much. Lost his job. Folks said he might be heading for rehab. I didn't say anything for a while. The wind rustled the trees outside, and I thought about the little boy who used to run through this house laughing. The one who'd bring me dandelions and call them flowers. Patricia reached over and touched my hand. I'm sorry. I shook my head. I'm not. Her eyes widened a little, but she didn't pull away. Patricia, I said, you spend your life giving and forgiving and thinking that love means enduring pain. But sometimes love means closing the door. She nodded slowly. You're right. We sat there in comfortable silence, sipping tea, the afternoon sun warming the room. When she left, I walked outside and stood on the porch. The garden Bernard built 20 years ago was coming back to life green, pushing through brown soil. I breathed deep, the cold air filling my lungs. The hurt was still there, but softer now, like an echo instead of a wound. I thought of Zion somewhere out there, paying for what he'd done, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger or sorrow. I felt peace. He'd chosen his path. I'd finally chosen mine. By the time summer rolled in, the world had shifted again. The days stretched long and heavy, the kind of southern heat that made the air feel thick enough to swim through. The tomatoes in my garden were growing wild, bright red against the green. Every morning, I'd step outside with my coffee, barefoot on the porch, listening to cicadas hum while the city woke up around me. Patricia came over most afternoons. We'd sit outside under Bernard's old oak tree, drinking lemonade, watching the bees hover over the flowers. Sometimes we talked about the case, but mostly we didn't. Silence had become its own kind of healing. The district attorney had called. Back in May, the trial was officially set for late August. Alicia said we were ready. The evidence is airtight, she told me. They'll try to settle, but don't take it. They need to face this in court. I trusted her completely. Still, there were nights when sleep didn't come easy. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment in the kitchen, the shove, the pain, the sound of my son's voice twisting into something unrecognizable. Some nights I'd wake up angry, others heartbroken. But most nights I just felt empty. Then, one humid morning in July, I saw Zion again. I was out back trimming the hedges when a car pulled up in front of my house. The engine idled too long before shutting off. When I turned, he was standing at the end of the walkway, thinner than I remembered, shoulders slumped. His once polished look was gone, no pressed shirt, no wedding ring, no confidence. Just a man who'd run out of excuses. Ma, he said softly. I didn't answer. He stepped closer, cautious, eyes darting to the front windows like he wasn't sure if someone else might appear. I just wanted to talk. There's nothing left to say, Zion. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking everywhere but at me. They froze our accounts. I lost my job. Naomi left. I don't even know where she is. I nodded slowly. That sounds like consequences. His eyes finally met mine, desperate and red-rimmed. I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I messed up, I know that. But please, Ma, can you tell them I didn't mean to hurt you? The air between us went still. You shoved me to the ground, I said. You watched me bleed. What part of that wasn't meant? Tears welled in his eyes. I just don't, I said quietly. You had your chances. You chose her. You chose greed. Now you live with what you built. He nodded, swallowing hard, his voice cracking when he finally spoke again. I still love you, Ma. I looked at him for a long time, searching for the boy I'd raised, the one who used to hold my hand crossing the street. But all I saw was a stranger. Love isn't supposed to hurt like that, I said. He nodded again, then stepped back. Guess I should go. Yeah, I said. You should. He turned and walked back toward the car. I watched him drive away in something small and beat up, definitely not the silver Mercedes. The sound faded until the only thing left was the steady buzz of summer. When the silence settled again, I went inside and called the police. This is Evelyn Holt, I said. I have a restraining order against my son. He was just here. The officer on the line promised to make a report and follow up. I hung up and stood there for a while, letting the quiet sink in. It didn't feel heavy this time. It felt earned. Later that week, Patricia came over with a peach cobbler still warm from the oven. We ate on the porch as the sun went down, the air thick with the smell of honeysuckle and something electric in the distance. She looked at me and smiled. You did right, she said. I know, I answered. It still hurts, though. She nodded. Healing always does. We didn't speak after that. The sky went dark, fireflies blinking across the yard, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a woman rebuilding her life from the ashes. August was coming. And I was ready. August came in heavy and bright, the kind of heat that made courthouse walls shimmer. The trial lasted 3 long days, though it felt like years compressed into hours. On the first day, I sat quietly beside Alicia at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded, my good hip aching from the hard wooden bench. Across the room sat Zion and Naomi, no longer husband and wife, but co-defendants linked by greed and shame. Naomi looked different from the woman who used to strut through my kitchen in heels and perfume. Her hair was unkept, her face pale under too much makeup. Zion couldn't meet my eyes. Every time I looked at him, he was staring at the floor, jaw tight, eyes glassy. When the prosecutor began, her voice was calm and sharp, each fact cutting through the silence like a blade. The ATM footage played on a screen for everyone to see Naomi in that red coat, withdrawing cash again and again. Then came my bank records, my medical documents, the photos of my bruises. I felt exposed, but not ashamed. On the second day, they called me to the stand. I took a deep breath, swore on the Bible, and sat down facing the jury. The courtroom felt cold, though sweat still rolled down my back. I told them everything, the withdrawals, the lies, the Christmas Eve dinner, the shove, the blood. My voice trembled at first, but grew stronger as I went on. I didn't look at Zion until the very end. When I finally did, he looked like a man realizing too late what he'd lost. When I finished, the courtroom was silent. The judge nodded once. Thank you, Mrs. Holt. You may step down. That night, I slept better than I had in months. By the third day, the defense tried to twist the story, Naomi claiming it was all a misunderstanding, Zion saying it was an accident, that I'd fallen on my own. But the evidence was stronger than their words. Alicia tore through their excuses with the patience of a woman who'd seen every kind of lie before. When closing arguments ended, I watched the jury file out. My hands shook, but not from fear this time. From release. 2 hours later, they came back. Guilty on both counts, theft and assault. The judge sentenced Naomi to 18 months, Zion to 12. Short sentences, maybe, but enough. Enough to mark the truth. As they were let out, Zion turned once, eyes wet, lips parting like he wanted to say something. But he didn't, and I didn't either. Some words just don't deserve air. Outside, the sun felt warm instead of harsh. Alicia squeezed my shoulder. You did it, she said. I just told the truth, I answered. She smiled. Sometimes that's the hardest thing. The weeks after the trial felt strange quiet in a new way. The phone didn't ring as much, and when it did, it wasn't bad news. Friends from church sent casseroles and cards. Patricia brought over a new fern for the living room. I planted more flowers in the garden Bernard built, ones that thrived in full sun. One afternoon, Patricia stopped by with 2 cups of sweet tea. "You look different," she said. "I feel different," I told her. She hesitated. "You heard about Zion?" I nodded. "Yeah, he's out on bail until they finalize the paperwork. Staying somewhere in Decatur, keeping quiet." I took a slow sip of tea, the ice clinking in the glass. "As long as he stays away from me, that's all I care about." Patricia studied me, then smiled softly. "You ever feel lonely?" "Sometimes," I admitted, "but lonely's better than used." She laughed, a low, warm sound. "That's the truth." We sat there for a while, watching the sun dip behind the rooftops, our shadows stretching long across the yard. For the first time since everything happened, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, peace that didn't need explaining. The past was over. The scars would stay, but they no longer hurt. March arrived with a softness I hadn't felt in years. The first warm day pulled me outside early, barefoot in the garden Bernard had built by hand so long ago. The crow that had vanished during winter was back, pecking at the soil, bold as ever. New life was pushing through green sprouts, tender and fragile, but stubborn enough to rise. I knelt down, dirt beneath my nails, the sun warm on my shoulders, and felt something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't joy exactly, but it was close. The house behind me was quiet, the kind of silence that used to make me ache. Now it felt like peace. Inside, the walls still held the echoes of everything that had happened, the laughter, the shouting, the breaking, but it didn't haunt me anymore. I claimed every corner again. It was mine. My home, my life. Sometimes, in the early mornings, I still thought about Zion, wondered if he ever sat alone somewhere thinking about the night everything fell apart. I hoped he did. Not out of spite, but because reflection was the only way to grow. I'd learned that too late, and maybe he would too if he wanted to survive the man he'd become. I picked a ripe tomato, wiped the dirt away, and smiled faintly. It's funny how something can be torn apart, crushed, and still come back stronger the next season. That garden had taught me more about resilience than any sermon ever could. Patricia came by around noon, carrying a basket of collards and her easy laugh. "You've been quiet lately," she said, setting the basket on the porch. "Quiet's a blessing," I told her. She nodded. "You're not angry anymore, are you?" I thought about that for a second. No, anger was heavy. I put it down. She smiled. "You did the right thing, Evelyn. You saved yourself." "I did what I should have done years ago," I said. "Chose me." We sat outside for a while, the breeze soft and warm. The neighborhood kids ran by laughing, the sound floating over fences like music. After Patricia left, I stayed out on the porch watching the sun sink low. The world looked golden again. I thought about all the lessons life had handed me, the ones that broke me, the ones that built me, and how every single one had led me here. Sometimes survival doesn't look like victory. Sometimes it looks like peace after the storm, like a quiet home. Like standing in your garden knowing you don't owe anybody anything. If anyone had told me a year ago that I'd lose my only son and still find freedom in the ruins, I wouldn't have believed them. But I know now, letting go isn't the same as giving up. It's how you make space for better things to grow. I brushed the dirt from my hands, looked straight at the camera of my mind, the invisible listener. I'd been talking to all along and spoke the truth I'd earned the hard way. Sometimes family breaks you before it teaches you. But when you finally stand up, when you finally stop apologizing for surviving, that's when you start to live again. The wind carried my words into the quiet yard, across the soil, up to the crow perched on the fence. I smiled as it took flight, wings cutting through the fading light. "What about you?" I asked softly, as if someone out there could hear me. "What lesson hit you hardest in my story?" If you were in my shoes that Christmas Eve, what would you have done differently? The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the garden in gold. I gathered the basket of collards, took one last look at the world Bernard and I built, and whispered to the air, I'm still here. And for the first time in a long time, being here felt like enough.